when I call, O God of my righteousness. Thou hast enlarged me when I was in distress. Have mercy upon me. Hear my prayer. Oh, ye sons of men, how long will ye turn my glory into shame? How long will ye love vanity and seek after leasing Selah? But know that the Lord hath set apart him that is godly for himself. The Lord will hear when I call unto him. Stand in awe and sin not. Commune with your own heart. Upon your bed and be still, Selah. Offer the sacrifice of righteousness and put your trust in the Lord. There be many that say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift thou up the light of their countenance on us. Thou hast put gladness in my heart, more than the time that the corn and the wine increase. I will go lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety.
All right. Hello, everybody. It is just checking the microphone. It's Friday Night Fellowship, and I am extremely late. I promise you I have a good reason why, but I am late this evening. Turned out we worked an almost 14-hour day. That was not the plan. Where I work, we had inventory. Good evening, Brother Christopher. Glad you could be here, Brother Christopher. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking it out. Thanks for being around. Me being late tonight. So I do apologize for that. But yeah, we had an inventory at plant-wide inventory and a warehouse-wide inventory system, and we were supposed to do it today and tomorrow, but they decided if we can get everything done today, we don't have to come in tomorrow. So obviously, some folks didn't want to come in on the weekend, so we stayed until we got it done, and we did get it done. So, yikes! So that's why I'm running a little late today because of being at work and having the inventory. I barely got to eat a small piece of pizza when I got home. Shoved that down my throat. Hurried up and got out here on the live stream. But I appreciate those of you who are here and stuck it out and were here. But yeah, it was quite unexpected. We did not expect to work of 14, basically almost a 14-hour day, 13 and a half hours. So we weren't planning on that. So that happens. When you work for a living, these things are going to happen. But I don't ever work late on a Friday, so that it is what it is. But at least I got tomorrow off. I get to spend it with my boys because I got to, we bring one to the coin shop. I got to bring the other one down to Harbor Freight. But there you go. So there's the reason why I'm late this evening. But what are you going to do? So I hope everybody out there is doing well. Brother Christopher, I hope you're doing well. I see you there. I see Prof. Gal. Thank you for putting the fact that I'm still at work and going to be behind schedule. I am here. I didn't want to cancel it, so I want to be here anyways. So good. I'm glad you're doing well, bud. I'm glad you're doing well. So, and to answer your question, yeah, I haven't put a video out on the Westcott Horde or anything like that, but I got a whole bunch of them ready to roll. Basically, I just didn't get around to putting videos up this last week, but I will be having one either Sunday or Monday. Will definitely be coming out. So I got, I think, 6 or 7 ready to go. So I'll be putting those out pretty quickly. I've actually now been putting stuff back on my Rumble channel, so that's putting a lot of stuff back there. So Rumble is up and going. Well, it's been there. Rumble hasn't gone away. It's just that I hadn't been posting anything over there for quite a while. Just haven't been doing it. Haven't been doing both sides, but I'd like to be able to eventually get simultaneous. I was trying to figure out how I can live stream and have it go to both Rumble and YouTube at the same time. But I have not figured that out yet. So hopefully I'll figure that out this week. Maybe I'll get some time and I'll work on that. So there you go with that. Had an interesting day today. I worked the bulk of my day with a Muslim gentleman. So that made for some interesting conversation. Not against the conversation, obviously, but it led to, because we had to be teamed up with people. So he doesn't work in my department or in my area, or he's not in warehousing. He's not a forklift operator. He works in a different part of the plant, but they were pairing us up with somebody else, and we're doing it in teams. So I got paired with him. I'd have to say there's a reason for it. What are the odds that I get paired with the Muslim for this inventory? But it was a very civil dialogue that we had throughout the day. It wasn't over. We didn't go full blown, theology and philosophy or anything like that. We didn't get going to that direction, but we did have a conversation throughout the day. Clearly, we have different belief systems, clearly. But yeah, no, it was I thought a very productive conversation. We'll see what goes from that. I hope that does lead somewhere. You never know, but again, I might not be the one who is the one who brings them or helps brings them to Christ, but sometimes you can be the one that drops the seed, and maybe that is something you can do. It all depends. We'll see. Again, we'll see how it works. But again, a pretty decent conversation. I think I asked some questions that were designed to put him in a spot where he couldn't deny something. But I tell you what, I was actually surprised, because this would be the first Muslim that I've spoken with in my lifetime that wasn't full of anger towards me. So I was surprised by that. That actually took me by surprise. I was prepared for what I had been up against previously before along the way. So, but to my surprise, no anger or hostility. So that was rather shocking and a pleasant surprise. But we did have a conversation. We talked about different things. There's a certain things that he does believe that, yes, that we all know that they do believe. So he didn't deny things. The part about Jesus, about being switched, that wasn't really Jesus up on the cross. He does believe that. He believes that he was Jesus was switched last second. I tell you what, that to me that makes a good Alex Jones conspiracy theory. But so that is something he definitely believes in. So it was interesting. I don't know how everybody else has got to say for that stuff or talk about. I don't know how many other people who deal with Muslims. For me, it's been a while since I've dealt with a Muslim. And dealt with, I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, had a conversation with them and to see where it goes. So I'm hopeful that there's something there, that there's a possible future dialogue along the way. Again, sometimes we win people not just by zeal and yelling and screaming and anger. Sometimes if we show a little bit of love and mercy, we might get a little headway into somewhere. Now, we were doing inventory today, and I had half my lunch at one of our breaks. I had my yogurt and half a sandwich. As you guys know, my wife makes homemade yogurt and homemade bread, so it's homemade food. But I had my yogurt and I had half a sandwich because I was hungry earlier this morning, like 10:30 this morning, and I had a half sandwich left. Now, when we had to leave the plant, this Muslim gentleman. And yes, I drove him to the warehouse. So we worked as teams and brought him down there. I had no problem with doing that. I think some people wouldn't do it, but I felt it was the right thing to do. I've got to let the Spirit lead me in where I'm going and what I'm going to do, not about what I feel, my emotionalness. It has to be about what I believe God is leading me to do. So brought him down to the warehouse. Well, while we were there, they had a pepperoni pizza and some other pizza that I don't even know what it was. It might have been some all veggie pizza. I don't even know. But I don't eat pepperoni pizza. And he didn't eat the pepperoni because it's got pork in it. That particular type of pepperoni has pork in it. So he didn't eat the pizza. He didn't want the pizza. So I gave him the rest of my lunch, and I just picked the pizzas off. And again, the reason doing so, number one, well, there's a hungry man in front of me. I'm going to feed him. And two, we've got to show this type of love and mercy, in my opinion, what we should be doing. So, no, I didn't break bread. Somebody's going to say, wasn't that breaking bread? No, we were having lunch at work. That's not the same as going to someone's home and breaking bread. It's not exactly the same thing. I was struck by the fact that the difference on this is I prayed about my food, my lunch, because I always pray on the food all the time. He did not, which kind of threw me off a little bit. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that. So, but you can let me know. Would you have shared your sandwich with this Muslim? Lead by Christian example. Yeah, that's the goal here, and I think, and I've talked about this many times, is we don't see that. I don't see as much anymore. We're willing to walk away from somebody who doesn't believe like we do. Well, you're never going to get them to believe the way you do if you're just going to show hostility and anger and malice and disregard for someone. We're supposed to be reaching out. We're supposed to be witnessing. We're supposed to be evangelizing. We're supposed to be, all of these things. So, and evangelizing can come in different ways. And for me, that is part of the witnessing and evangelizing, not only the conversations that we were having, but giving him a sandwich. Same, to me, it falls in part of the, I don't know, same category, but part of the whole situation. So to me, that was the right thing to do. And I will say to me, but again, I was quietly asking the Lord for guidance here and just lead me in the right directions and give me the right words to say. I know what I would want to say. As you guys all know, that I can, if I want to get a combative and a conversation and go start whipping out scripture, I don't have a problem with that. But there's no reason to be that way in that situation. You have to use discernment. And this was not a situation which called for aggressive tactics at all. And what I felt, my opinion. Absolutely. Thank you. So that's the approach I took. And again, I'm hoping it will lead somewhere. You can do what you think the Lord wants you to do. You just follow what you feel that He's guiding you to do, and hopefully that leads you down that proper road. But again, it was an interesting conversation. We talked about we talked about the Trinity, Godhead, for a few moments, and obviously they don't believe in a Trinity. They don't believe in three and one. They don't believe in a Godhead. They believe in just one God, and that's it. And Jesus was made, and what he was telling me is God made Jesus. He created a spirit and sent it in to Mary. So I had not heard that before from other Muslims, but again, I don't witness to all Muslims. Some people witness to Muslims all the time and talk with Muslims all the time. I don't have as much interaction with them in my walk, in my areas of where I am. And now back where I used to be, I would have seen more and come across more, but I don't, not in this area. We don't have a lot of them in this particular area where I live. So I no longer am, I don't want to say exposed, but exposed to them as much as I once was. I know that, 30 years ago when I fell fell and backslid, and I was in jail with a Muslim gentleman, very angry man. I worked with one when I used to be up in Clinton, Massachusetts, another very angry man. And there's a couple others but anyways, you get the point. It's the same idea. And we talked about it. He talked, well, as a lot of people might know the story, the fact that when Muhammad was in the cave, that there was a priest, or they got a priest, a Catholic person, to tell Muhammad that yes, he was visited in a dream, this is legit, and da. Well, they disregarded the Catholic part. There was no Catholic. It was a scholar. It was a scholar in the area that told him that his dream was legit. And I thought that was interesting that he said that, because I find a lot of people today are like, only scholars. I believe what the scholars say. It's only the scholars. It's only the scholars. But scholars have skin in the game. You know what I mean? They have a bias. They're trying to make a name for themselves. They want to be somebody. They want to be important. In today's world, they want to sell books. They want professorships. All these things. So we talked about that. I said that I'm pretty overall anti-scholar, but I keep an ear open. There are some that that have some good things to say, but I think when we start relying too much on scholars and outside commentary and not the Bible itself, we get led astray. And I had questions on that one. I said, so you're more relying on a scholar than someone who is actually a Muslim to tell you. And they say there's very smart scholars that study the language. I said, yeah, but what about people who already know the language? I say it's a little bit, and they say that even the Quran can be hard to understand because it's written hard. Phrases are different in English. I said, so you have to go to the person in charge for deciphering. He said, yes. I said, well, that is exactly like Roman Catholicism. I said to him, you have to go to them for deciphering. So you have the same system in a way that they think that you have to go to them. You have the same system of you have to go to them your higher ups, your imams or whatever. You have to go to them to clarify what your Quran says, just like the Catholic Church says, you come to us to clarify what the Bible says. And it's never, you don't believe that God can impute the wisdom into you to understand these things and to look into these things. You're relying on them to tell you what it means. I says, so that's a common ground. I said that Islam and Roman Catholicism have together is they can't think for themselves. They have to be told what to think from the higher ups. I says, it's not how it works, man. That's crazy. To me, I don't think that's legitimate, and I don't think that's a good way to be. I don't think God would make the system like that. So we talked about that. So again, we had some conversations. We probably didn't work as fast as we probably should have, but God put that situation together for a reason. So I'm running with it. Wherever God leads me, I go. That's pretty much how it works. I remember telling a pastor a long time ago the same thing. I said to him, I may be here on a Sunday. I may not be. If God wants me to go down to the street corner on a Sunday morning to do witnessing, guess where I'm going? I'm going down the street corner. I won't be in the church building. I'll go where God wants me to go, or where I feel the Spirit is leading me to go. And he was a little thrown off. He goes, "Oh, well, I if I remember correctly, my wife might remember, but I think he was basically saying, well, God wouldn't have you do that on a Sunday." What? No, God can do whatever he wants on whatever day he wants at whatever hour he wants. We don't get to dictate when. No, God. Sunday I have to be here at church to worship you. That's not. No. If the situation arises and you're somewhere, God's got you in a spot, that's where you're going. Your authority is God in that situation. It is not your preacher or your pastor or your priest or your reverend or your rabbi or your caliph or your imam. Those are not your authority. God's your authority in the situation. So, but that's a bit of what we talked about, like I said today. So, a little more. There was a little more going on there as well. But we'll. I don't know that I'll ever work with him again. I don't know if there'll be an opportunity again. But if this is the only opportunity, perhaps. But again, even if this was the only opportunity I had with him, I think there was enough to be said in this one meeting, because maybe I won't see that gentleman again. I mean, I might see him again. We work for the same company, but there's two different locations. So, and hopefully I planted a seed. That's really what I'm hoping. I mean, and for a Muslim, I was impressed with the civil dialogue he was having, and that was impressive. Although he grew up a Christian, like a lot do, and he left and became a Muslim. So he's been a Muslim for 14 years. So he stopped a few times today and prayed during our work day. He went off into the corner in different spots and prayed, which is interesting to me, because here's what fascinates me with workplaces is how they allow things like that and give them, it's your religion, you're able to do that. But yet I'm not allowed to say no on Sundays because of my faith and my belief as a born again Christian. That doesn't get considered, but and I'm not trying to hate on this particular gentleman. My problem is this is what we've come to in America, and obviously France, the UK, Germany are a lot worse off in this situation, and Canada. But I don't think it should be allowed. If it's going to be allowed, it should be allowed across borders. That means if you're letting a Muslim pray during work hours, he's not on a break. He's just praying because it's his time of the day to pray, because it's 3 to 4 times a day, different directions, blah, blah, blah. Then therefore I should be able to do the same thing. Hello, Emriel. How are you tonight? I've actually seen you on the channel. I've not to butter you up, but you've had a lot of good things to say on that channel. Sometimes I don't talk, and sometimes I do. But thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate it. I'm just talking about if you just popped in, but just talking about a Muslim at work that I had to work with most of the day, and we had some interesting conversations. But thank you for being here. Yeah, Nick Sayers. I try to tell people to go over there if they want some deeper stuff in things he talks about. He's really got some good stuff in there. If you can sit there for 6 hours, that's always the big joke, though. That's the funny part about it. If you can do the 5 to 6 hours. I'm not always able to get the whole time in, but Nick does a great job over there in the stuff he does. I think he does go down some rabbit trails, but I like his stuff. But I was just talking about a Muslim today because I'm late to getting on the thing here. But anyways, going back to that gentleman, hopefully I'll get some more opportunities with this gentleman to have a conversation with him and dialogue. But it was an interesting one. Like I said, he was a Christian. He was a Southern Baptist, independent Baptist who became a Muslim, which I thought was interesting. I haven't seen him from that direction, but we did talk about those things. We did. Did you just say the same thing twice? Yep, you clicked it twice, I think. Welcome. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I really do. But yeah, so, and like I said, I said, well, I says, you also, I says, I know you're, and he spoke very anti-Roman Catholicism, which is fine, but I says, well, you have to take in consideration some of the things you have in common. You have, I said, when it comes to prayer beads, only Roman Catholicism, Islam, and basically the Far East religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, have prayer beads that they have to count a certain amount. They don't all count the same ones. I forget what they were, but I've done the work on that before. There's different counts for different ones. I says, you have a lot in common there. I says, so there's a lot of things that you two have in common, being Catholicism and Islam, which he doesn't think they have much. He says, well, we have a lot more in common with Christians. And I says, well, I don't think it, I said, it depends on who you mean by Christians too, because I mean, are you talking about the Joel Osteen, Rick Warren, Oprah Winfrey Christians, or, you have to almost clarify what you mean by Christian now. Christian doesn't quite mean the same thing as it did before. It used to be when someone, was a professing Christian or said they were Christian, you could almost pretty much take them at their word. But nowadays, people say they're Christian and they're no different in their new life than they were in their old life, and you have to kind of question that. And so it says it depends on who you're talking to, Christianity. But it says there's not a lot of similarities unless you're going to go back to Abraham and then being him the father of everything there. But yes, you can go back to that level. But it says there's not a lot of things in common. And I was surprised. Well, I wasn't surprised when he did say that, he believed the theory of Jesus being swapped off the cross and the conspiracy there. And I was like, well, okay, interesting. But again, I think the approach today, having compassion and talking with him with a civil dialogue in this particular situation, discernment, again, using every situation you're in, what is the best way to be having this conversation? It wasn't about being on attack this time around. This is really not an aggressive moment. This is, again, just reaching out and having that conversation. So neither one of us got angry. I think I kind of put him in a kind of a corner a couple times, but once I realized I put him too far into a corner, I kind of switched gears because we don't, I didn't want to drive, make him really angry where the door is shut and there's nothing more no more conversation that I can get in there. So it's kind of like, putting some there, you kind of back up, duck and weave, just put a jab in, back up, protect, put your guard up. But it was to spend all day working side by side with them today, or a big chunk of the day, because it was a 13.5-hour day. So we spent a big chunk of time talking. So I do wonder what other people would do in the situation. Would you have given him your sandwich when even though he's a Muslim, you have a hungry man in front of you? I felt it was the right thing to do at that time. I think something will come from this, because what are the odds of me getting paired up with a Muslim today for the inventory? So, I mean, the odds of that, I got to tell you, are pretty astronomical that was going to happen. But I'm thankful for the opportunity. And I was pleasantly surprised for the first Muslim that I've spoken to that didn't have anger. That was good, because I was prepared for rebuttals in my head to combat whatever anger that did come towards my direction. Because I was pretty quick. People people I work with know exactly where I stand. I don't, I always find it interesting that Christians are, there's a lot of Christians who are very vocal and upfront, put on Facebook or online or at their church. But when they're in public, all of a sudden they shy back. Um, I don't, I've always been fascinated by that. I'm like, why would you not be more vocal out in the world? Why do you have to be vocal around the people that probably think the same way as you? So what would be the point? Well, there's nothing that no fruit comes from that. To me, there's no point in it. It doesn't make any sense. But people shy away. And for me, and people who know me, I'm open pretty much quickly about it. Brother Christopher and I work together, and he'll tell you the same thing. I was pretty upfront about exactly where I am, exactly where I stand right from the get-go. I don't hide it. I don't, try to fit in or, I'll just try to appease the people around me. No. But I don't try to go out of my way to be a hindrance and try to bother people and try to throw my Bible at the back of somebody's head so I can convert them. That's not my approach either. So, yes, sir. I've always tried to be the same person. Well, it's not that hard, but I'm the same person, off screen and on screen. Nothing really changes. I think it's important to let people know. Brother Christopher and I have had some. Again, here's a situation where what are the odds that I work with him? My first driving job when I was down here in Tennessee, I ended up working with him, and we've rode together a couple of times. And what are the odds? God puts you in some places, man. I'm stumbling over my words for looking for an adjective to describe, how amazing and great it is that God can always put you in a location, in a spot, in a situation. Sometimes you may never know why you're in that situation, and sometimes you will. But I'm thankful for each one. I feel amazingly blessed when that these things happen. Knowing Brother Christopher's been a wonderful thing. I can't say much about that. I mean, I've said before, it's a wonderful. The job after I worked with Christopher, I ended up in another spot with another King James Bible believing Christian. Didn't see that coming. So I'm thankful for that. And then, we're friends. He's not usually on here. I don't see him here. We usually talk once a week or once every week and a half. I talk to him. A lot of people wonder why. Well, why don't you see more people? Well, adults have children. They have jobs. They have lives. You fellowship once in a while when you can. When you're able to. And even his job with the Muslim, I've also just connected with. We just hired a new kid, and he might even be on this channel tonight or another night. He's a good guy and a like-minded person, a King James person. So it's a blessing to be in places like that. I just, God's amazing. What can you do? What can you say? God's amazing to put you into these places. So I feel very blessed to be in that. My wife was telling me a story today because some of you know, and some of you don't. We don't celebrate Christmas, and I always have to tell people I'm not a JW and I'm not a Seventh-day Adventist. I'm not anything like that. Because of biblical reasons, we don't celebrate Christmas. But we don't hate people who celebrate Christmas or anything like that. Now, you're going to do what you're going to do. I mean, but we know it's not biblical or anything like that. But we talk about things like that, and this person's the same way. He feels the same way that the Christmas is not biblical. And I says, yeah. He was a little surprised that I thought that way because he goes, oh, man, it's hard to find anybody anymore who realizes. I'm like, yeah, I know. And then he says, oh, the pagan part of it. I'm like, well, it goes deeper than just the pagan part that you know of. It goes even further back than that. It goes even way back to Clement of Alexandria before Sol Invictus that was put in by Aurelian in 270. It goes further back than that. The ritualistic part of it. So, but what are the odds I get working with someone of that nature? So for me, I'm always thankful, man. I'm always thankful every day. I mean, I don't have the only hard luck story in the world, but my wife and I, through our lives, I mean, different lives, we grew up in different areas, obviously, but it was tough and it was not a good time. And I'm not the only sob story in the world, but we're blessed to be where we are now. We have a decent piece of land now. For us, it's a couple of acres. But it's more than a lot of people have, and not as much as other people. But it's enough for us. But we're blessed to have. I mean, we're a couple of city kids, and now we're living the country life. Basically, we have chickens. We have we have a garden. We have vegetables. We have another garden out there. We're putting trees in. So God is just an amazing God. And if you stay faithful, I say this all the time, you stay faithful. What you need, what the rewards you're getting is what the reward is you need. It's not about riches. It's not about a bigger house. It's not about these things. It's about provisions. It's about putting you in a situation where you have chickens in your backyard or whatever it is you need where you live. Some people are in the city now, so it'd be a little different, but staying faithful to God and just staying true, just keeping on that path and just keep on rolling. God rewards you. It doesn't mean you're never going to get sick or you're not going to break a leg or an ankle or anything like that. We were talking about persecution today, and I find the conversation a bit humorous for the fact that persecution, we don't know what persecution is. You probably say the same thing, like persecution. I mean, I talked about this a long time ago in a video with talking about Paul. And Paul was in prison, and we stub our toe and we think we're persecuted. We get a headache, but we're persecuted. No, we have no clue and no idea what persecution is. We don't have the faintest clue. When people are losing their lives and having their heads cut off already now, massacred or gunned down for their belief. Persecution, we don't have that here in America yet. Yes, there's a lot of preachers and pastors saying they're persecuted. I'm like, I just don't see the real persecution of what you're saying here. I'm being attacked by the enemy. Well, the enemy is always going to be trying to attack any Bible-believing Christian. So when a preacher or pastor tells me that or says that, I said, listen, you're not the only one that be persecuted because we're all going to be attacked. Satan's out to get us all the time, finding ways of figuring out how, even trying to figure out how he can use a family member to come in and sneak into your lives and destroy it. So, we don't know persecution. We're not about to be put at the stake to be burned alive. We're not Wycliffe or anybody like that. We're Tyndale and the rest of them. Nope, we're not. So and all the martyrs in Fox's Book of Martyrs, we're not that. So I think sometimes we have this, and to me, when we say we're being persecuted, I almost feel like it's a victim mentality when something goes wrong at work. They're out to get me. Okay, so what? Ooh, oh no, somebody's out to get you. You'll be fine. Trust God. You'll be good. You'll make it through. You may have a couple of cuts and a few little wounds, maybe get a black eye, but you're going to be fine. You're going to survive. You're not going to die. You're not going to have your head chopped off, so you don't have to worry about those things, But again, I do want to apologize for being late this evening. I wish I could have put a comment in earlier today and saying that I wouldn't be here, but there's not much of us left here. It looks like there's only 2 people left watching, so not a lot tonight, but that's okay. That's all right. I'll apologize to other people next week that were waiting and I wasn't here. And I won't even make it too long tonight either, because being 10, 11 at night, I usually start at 8 o'clock, so I was really late. But we got tomorrow, we got to get up and got stuff to do. But thankfully, we get out of work, though, because we got all the inventory done tonight, so that's a good thing. We able to get all today's work and tomorrow's work. We got it all done today, and therefore we don't have to worry about tomorrow, which is nice. That'll work, Even though I'm fine with working 6 days a week, and if we work 6 days a week, we work 6 days a week. That's fine by me. I mean, that's just the way life is. Won't be the first time I worked, 80 hours in a week. Brother Christopher knows that too. He's done the 80 hours in a week. He gets it. Brother Jorge doesn't seem to be here tonight, but he's worked his 80-hour weeks. He's probably put in some good hours. I guess I was persecuted. I had to work 13 hours today. I was persecuted. I had to work 13 hours. No, you're not going to see me talking about persecution. Well, we're not persecuted. We're just not. We have it easy. We have it easy in America. We do. We have it far too easy, and we've been far too complacent and not having concerns or worries. And that's why, again, you're going to have a lot of professing Christians who fall by the wayside because there's not any test. There's nothing out to get them. There's no real trials or tribulations. They're not knocking at the door telling you to convert or you're going to be dead or they're going to take your house if you don't renounce God and follow their way. They want so you can take their digital dollar and then they want you to bow down to their digital God. So but that won't happen. I won't be doing that anytime soon. It's not my plan. But yeah, Brother Chris, if you're on Rumble, I'm over there, and I don't know if you ever knew that, but I haven't been on Rumble in a long time, so feel free to go over there. But it's mostly what I'm talking about here on YouTube anyways. There's not going to be anything different over there. Rumble just has different people over there who don't really watch YouTube. There are some people who are on YouTube. Well, there's a lot of people on YouTube who don't even look at Rumble. And then there's people on Rumble that are actually just on Rumble. They don't even go to YouTube. They banned and boycotted YouTube. But here's an interesting fact. So I thought about this, and I thought about YouTube, and I was like, man, I don't want to be. YouTube is owned by the Alphabet and Google, and my son gave me an interesting statistic. The second largest share owner of Google, which is the parent company of YouTube, is BlackRock, which I thought was very interesting. BlackRock has stock and stake in this company. So basically, BlackRock is a large majority shareholder of YouTube via Google. And so I'm like, man, maybe I should just go straight to Rumble. Guess who has shares in Rumble? Which I again think it's funny because there have been guys over there like, who's the guy who became the FBI director or the CIA director? Or, no, what did he become? Dan Bongino. So he's an anti-BlackRock person. Now, I point him out because he's the founder, or he was like one of the biggest, a bigwig at Rumble or of some sort. And he's talked against BlackRock all the time. Well, BlackRock has shares in Rumble. So BlackRock is in everything, I guess. So I guess I can't just go to Rumble and not YouTube because BlackRock's on both. So what are you going to do? I thought that when my son brought that to my attention, I thought that was interesting. The peaceful Muslims are not real Muslims. It's a radical extremist Muslim that will sacrifice themselves. That are the real Muslims. Yeah, we had a conversation about that. We that was a conversation we talked about as well. What Catholicism is to true Christianity is what peaceful Muslims are. It's not the real thing. Yeah. So and we talked about that, and we dived into a little bit about that. So we skimmed the surface of different things and talked about different things. And he says, and I says, well, I mean, your own Quran. So we got into the Quran, and here's the funny thing about the Quran. So I have the Quran in my somewhere over there. I don't know where it is at the moment, but anyways, so we talked about the fact that the Quran, it says in the Quran to kill, to murder certain peoples. And he says, well, that's not true. It's taken out of context. I'm like, here we go with context. I says, and what my my rebuttal with everything was basically the same thing. I'm like, well, that's kind of what the Catholics say. That's kind of what the Roman Catholics say. That's kind of what lining him up right with the Roman Catholic Church. I says, the same thing. So I said, well, you have different Qurans. And they, no, we only have one. I'm like, well, no, you don't. You have them written in different areas, and they're not all the same. He goes, oh, well, yeah, you have like ones for Shia. I said, but hold on a second. So if you're a Muslim, should you not have the same Bible, the same Quran, because you say it comes down from Muhammad? And I said, let's say let's say that's an actual fact. I said, which I personally don't believe. I said, let's say that's an actual fact that comes down straight from Muhammad. Then shouldn't all your Qurans read the exact same thing, but they don't read the exact same thing? He goes, well, that's because people change it, and there are certain words in Arabic that don't mean the same. So you have to. I don't know if you heard earlier, but that was led into. That's why you need your higher ups, your imams, and all that nonsense to explain to you what it means. I says, oh wow, that's exactly like the Roman Catholic Church. You have to go to the Pope, you have to go to your priest, you have to go to somebody else because you're not smart enough to understand it. When the Bible is, you are smart enough to understand when you're saved. And so I says, it's kind of the same thing. You're still in the same category. So I kept on pointing those things out, and I says, and buddy, your Mecca didn't exist until well after Muhammad was even a thing. Mecca didn't even have a map. They weren't even on a map on the trail routes. So when you have those, when you have trade routes, they create these maps going through different areas, and they're not even on a map. Mecca's not even on it. And I told him, I says, and this is one thing he did agree on, which I thought, here's the thing he agreed on. I says, and when you're praying, you used to pray towards Petra, but now you've changed it and gone a different direction. He goes, yeah, we used to pray in that direction, but we weren't supposed to, so that's why it was changed. I'm like, no, you were praying in that direction, so how can I believe you're right? So did Muhammad make a mistake then? So Muhammad had to make a mistake, or somebody along the way made a mistake, but you're telling me that everything is written down and factual and facts. I says, you're in two different worlds here, so you have to say all of it or none of it, because you're having too many things. And when he said there's too many, enough evidence that Muhammad existed and this and that, and it's been written down and it's been around forever. I says, okay. And he says, but the Gospels, he was telling me, those we don't know who wrote those, and they could have been plagiarized, or they could have been what's the word he looked, basically forged or falsified. I said, well, I can say the same thing about the Quran. It's the same thing. You don't have actual proof. You have oral traditions up to a certain point, and then you have written down. I said, so I can say the same thing about the Quran, that it could have been forged. It's a plagiarism. It's not real. It was fabricated. Just like you would say of the Bible, that's not real. It's fabricated. So I'm like, you got the same problem that you're insisting that Christians have. You have that same exact problem because you can't prove it. You can't prove it either. You say you can prove Muhammad exists, but you can only prove it by stories after stories after stories. So you still have the burden of proof, and there's more proof now that leads towards a lot of things not being there, Mecca being one, and the situation was 300 years later, not even on a trade route, not even on, again, they're smarter men than me who have figured out that wasn't on a trade route, and that they had to go way out of that way to be. You would want your camels along the water and the shore back then. You would want to be hitting trading posts, be by water for your camels and you yourself, and trying to get water, but you wouldn't be going up somewhere and then go way down backwards and go sideways and down and then come all the way back up and go back on the route when you have already stops on that route. You already have trading posts. I call them trading posts. It's in America, they call them trading posts. I don't know exactly the terminology they would have used then. But they have stops along that way. There would be no reason for them to leave that to go down to Mecca to come back up here and then go along their way. So So there were things like that we talked about. I said I find that difficult to believe. So you have I said I understand that you have difficulty believing certain things, but which requires a certain amount of faith. I'm not told to believe the Bible. I have faith that the Bible is true when I read the Bible. You're basically told that this is what it is, just like the Roman Catholic Church says. You're told this is what you're supposed to believe, therefore you believe it. I said, so you're not real. You've used free will in a way to not believe truth and to believe men instead. So, kind of where we went with that. Another thing I found interesting that I did not know. This is something I did not know. So his wife goes out in public with the whole garb there. The word is the outfit's the name of it's I'm lacking what the name is right now. But they wear the whole thing. But at home, she wears pants. Now, I'm not saying she's not allowed. She can't have pants on. I'm just saying, my wife and I, we don't believe biblically that women are supposed to wear pants. That's us. That's what where we're at. But interesting hijab. Yeah, there you go, buddy. Thank you. One of the words was escaping me. I appreciate that. So, and I found that interesting. So to me, it was almost as if, okay, so that means you're one way in public, but you're another way in private. See, we're supposed to be one way in public and the same one way in private. That's what so again, to me, that was, well, isn't that a false representation? Oh, you're at home, it's different. Well, okay, but I'm just saying, do you hurry up and have her put stuff on if somebody knocks at the door? Do you have her put her hijab on, everything like that? That's, to me, I know it's to some that might be a strange question to ask or get into, but I think it's important because all these little things and add up. All the little things add up to the big thing, and so, and he was not offended by these things. He wasn't angry at it. And he did go on to talk about how God is, if God is eternal, he cannot be Jesus. So so we had that conversation, and I was like, okay. But again, I think God put me in this position today to have a conversation with him. I showed no anger and no malice towards him at all. The women only have to wear that when they are around no family males, I believe. Yeah, I'm not sure when they're supposed to wear it or not wear it. I thought they were supposed to be always wearing it. Because what happens if all of a sudden somebody just shows up? It just seems kind of weird to me. I don't know. It's and it might be a small, silly point, but it reminded me of how people are at home. They're totally different than they are in public. So that's where I go with that one. That's what I think of when I think of that. But and here's an interesting thing. I asked him, I says, because he was over in Saudi Arabia, apparently, I found out towards the end of the day. He had just got back. He was over there for 3 weeks. He had a daughter with his wife. His wife is Canadian. She was born in Canada, but her father is an engineer who lives over in Saudi Arabia. So I don't know if they were just visiting her family or whatever. But so I asked him, I says, have you ever thought of moving over there to Saudi Arabia to be among people like yourself who believe what you believe? And he says, no. He goes, I'm American. I says, well, okay, you're American, but you don't believe in America, though. Or you don't believe in certain things. He goes, oh, no, I don't like the government. I'm like, okay, so why don't you go to another place? And I wasn't saying, hey, get out of this country, you immigrant. That's not what I was saying to him. So I'm curious why you just don't go there. Your wife has citizenship, dual citizenship to Canada and over Saudi Arabia, and her family is there. Why would you not want to raise your child and his religion and over there? Well, I like the freedoms of America. Oh, wait a second. You like the freedoms in America? See, this is what bothers me sometimes, even with some other people that, oh, you like the freedom here and what you get from here that you can't have over there, what does it matter? Very interesting. I says, well, that's kind of weird because I said I would want to go where like-minded believers are, wherever that may be. That's where I would want to be located. But I found it interesting that he said that. I mean, I don't know who else would find that interesting, but why be here? You don't like the country. You have many problems with the government, and trust me, I have many problems with the government too. But you want to practice your religion, which is Islam, then why not go over there? Because you like America, you like its freedoms, you like the pay, so I don't know, how dedicated are your religion? Are you going to head over there like you're supposed to? I did tell him at the end of the day, he would have to come after me at some point. He goes, that's not what we teach. I says, every teaching I've ever seen teaches that. So to go back to what Embryo was saying, not a real Muslim, if you're praying, you're doing all these things, but at the end of the day, if you're not going to actually do the one thing that they want you to do, then you're not true. I told him of a friend I had, Rashid Khan. I grew up with a kid named Rashid Khan and another kid, Billy McAuliffe, and we were friends growing up. And I connected with Billy online one time on Facebook years ago. I was one of the last people to get Facebook on Facebook. I never was into Facebook, and then I finally I was forced into getting it. Basically, someone maybe could take it. But I found somebody, an old friend of mine from school, and then he asked me. I says, "Hey, did you hear what happened to Rashid Khan?" Well, he said Rashid, not Rashid Khan. I says, "No, I haven't talked to anybody from school in I don't know how many years." And he said, "Oh, he's dead. He died." I'm like, "Oh man, that's terrible. That's too bad. What happened?" And I'm not kidding you. He says he went back home to become a suicide bomber. I'm like, wow. And I remember his father didn't like us because we were Americans and he hated America. But again, here's another gentleman that was living in America that hated America. Then what are you here for? I mean, if you hate this country, I mean, I know that I think a lot of us can agree there's a lot of problems with our country. There's a lot of problems. But I don't hate where I live. I feel blessed to live here with the borrowed freedom that we have, because we have a limited freedom. We don't have as much freedom as we think we have here, but we have more freedom here than a lot of places have. So I'm thankful for that. But here's someone who's against the freedom, hates the country, then don't be here. I would say that to anybody, no matter who you are. If you hate it that much, you hate everything about this, you're not grateful for anything of the freedom that you do have here, then don't be here. Move on. Go somewhere else. Don't let the door hit you. I'm not going to be mad at you. Go ahead. So I found that a curious thing that it reminded me of that. When he had told me that, it reminded me of Rashid, who went back to become a suicide bomber, his father, who hated America and hated us kids. But his father, he was defying his father pretty much for a while there, but he clearly couldn't defy him anymore, I guess, and went back home and to Pakistan and became a suicide bomber in Pakistan. So he died, I don't know, so I guess probably 20 years ago, 25 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I'm trying to think of when I first got Facebook. Yeah, probably 20 years when I got Facebook. So I don't, of course, he could have been dead longer than that. I don't know. But yeah, so that's your, also a Muslim. I knew his father was a Muslim. I don't know that Rashid was a practicing one at that time, but I know his father was a Muslim. We knew that, when you're growing up, I mean, you see it more now today, but back when I was growing up, Muslims were more of a rarity. I mean, they're not rare in England and Canada. I mean, they've been there forever. Muslims have been there for eons. But yeah, so when we were growing up, they were more noticeable, so to speak. They stood out more. I mean, now you see them more often, depending on where you go to the big cities and so forth. But yeah, that's a Muslim becomes a suicide bomber. He's not. This gentleman says he's not going to be a suicide bomber, but at the same time, I'm like, you know. But what I think is a way to get to him and maybe drop some more truth in him is he is still a little bit traditional. He kind of hung on to a few Christian traditions and stuff like that. So to me, that's okay. Okay, you're not really 100% all the way in as much as you say you are. So again, so hopefully something comes from that, and we'll have a more conversation about it. Oh, I already said that. Rarity in the South. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have some people from overseas that run our gas stations down there. No, that's not me leading into some joke or something. They have a lot of the quick stops, the gas stations, the marathons, whatever, BPs, different BP, whatever. Yeah, we have a lot of them. We have a lot of Mexicans around here. But I'm not seeing a lot of them. I'm seeing a few more people from India, from that neck of the woods. We just hired a guy. He's an accountant for our company, some sort of accountant, and he's from India. But yeah, we don't see full blown Muslims much now. I don't know. Maybe heading over to Nashville. Maybe I'm pretty confident there's some in Memphis. I mean, they would definitely be in Memphis, and there's probably some in Knoxville. I think I've seen a couple. I think one of my stops here, I think he was a Muslim guy. I don't remember if that's true or not. The guy on over by BD Chevrolet, we have a couple. There was a couple small auto shops. I think one of them, and I could be wrong, but I think one of them was a Muslim. Could have been. They're justified for lying and pretending so long as Islam meets its end according to the belief. World domination is a goal. Yes. So that was somewhere I was getting to after that conversation about not being in America. But that was towards the end of our day, and we at that point had gotten split up. Some people had gone home. So I didn't get to that part of it. Because wanted to connect him to the Catholic Church and say, this is because he's very anti-Catholic Church. I'm like, well, this is another thing. The Vatican wants world control like Islam, like the Mormons. They want world control. So it's a power grab. They want it all. But we did not get to that point. So I think I do again believe that there's an opportunity here. And I think, if I'm able to get more time again with them, if I see him again, I'm willing to talk to him and see where that goes. There's no guarantee that little old me is gonna. Doesn't mean I'm gonna definitely be able to change him in his direction of where he is, but it doesn't mean I can't try and start planting seeds and work on it. Yes, yeah. That bugs me in a lot of different ways. They use our religious freedom to proselytize. That's the big thing. I'm like, we wouldn't have the same freedom over there. That's the big problem right there. We wouldn't have the same thing. And I told them, I said, we were talking about protests. I says, it's kind of funny, all these abominations as homosexuals and stuff that are protesting for you guys and over there. And little do they know that you guys will kill them in a heartbeat because you're against that. And that took them by surprise. I didn't mean to be blunt on that one. I ended up being blunt on that particular one. I remember that. And he goes, yeah, we don't believe in homosexuality. I said, yeah, abomination. I call it abomination. Yeah. So that was something we talked about. I forgot about that. But yeah, they do use our religious freedom. And it is kind of funny. Like I said with the other guy, guys, it hates our country, but he's here. He doesn't like everything about our country, which again, there are a lot of things that I don't like about our government. I think we can all agree there's a lot of problems with our government, sure. But I don't look at it that way. I have two flags in my office area, my podcast area. One is a colonial flag and one is the one during the Civil War. I don't have the one of today. There's a reason I have those in particular for the meaning behind them and what was going on in this country at that time. I get into a lot I get a lot of flack from certain people that I talk to out there that think I'm anti-America because of what I say about the where we are now, because the Vatican has got this country. I think at the end of the day, that's who's gonna where the Antichrist appears is through their Jewish Catholic. We talked about that. I personally believe that the Antichrist will come out of Turkey. I don't have hard evidence of it. It's just something I'm thinking and I feel. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. I don't have a shred of evidence, so to speak, on that, but I do believe that it'll be a Jewish person out of Turkey. But could I be wrong? Maybe. I think it could be a Jewish Muslim. You never know, a Jew and a Muslim combined. I don't know, but I do think Turkey is its location. You could say Germany. So you could pretend it's Germany because all of our modern translations really trace back to Germany, not just Westcott and Hort, but through German rationalism, which really started the ball rolling of destruction of the Bible, which led to you get the Oxford movement that comes from that, and then you got Westcott and Hort, you got Tischendorf, Tregelles, and Lockman and Greibach, all that kind of stuff. I'm not an expert in those fields. I'm just saying you can trace that back. So you can, Germany has been a very evil place for many, many generations. So there's a lot of bad stuff going on there. But I know that was a little side note, but I think it's Turkey. That's just me. I don't really get too much into end times. I don't concern with myself. I tell people this. When it comes to pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, I'm obviously a pre-trib guy. I'd be in that camp of pre-trib. But I also tell people, I'm like, it doesn't matter if you're pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, because if you're not even living the Bible, you ain't going anywhere anyways, whether it be mid or not. You're not, because I don't think you make post. If you can't even handle living for God now, I don't think you're going to make it a post-trib. You ain't going to make it through because you're not even doing it now. We need to worry about walking with the Lord. We need to be more living for God every day. Yes, are we prone to make mistakes and make errors along the way because our flesh, sometimes that stupid flesh messes us up? Yeah, that happens time to time. We're also asking forgiveness for that. We talked about works salvation. I says I don't believe in works salvation like Catholics and Islam. I don't believe in works and getting anywhere. And again, he did say that, well, he doesn't believe in works salvation. I says, well, you personally may not. I don't know. But I says the faith and the religion itself does, because you're always having to do things to get there. We talked about the prayer beads and stuff like that. I says that ancient ritual, I called it. So anyways, well, we'll see what happens with that down the road. Yeah. God put me in a situation. God paired him with me today in this inventory that we did. And so never met the man until today. So I'm hopeful, excited and hopeful that there's maybe a door opened. I'm not gonna be pessimistic about it or negative about it. I'm going to believe there's an opportunity there. I will pursue it as I can. But again, hopefully today was just planting a few seeds and showing him that true born-again Christians have more compassion and mercy than even Roman Catholics and Islam. Now, maybe none of y'all would have shared, give him your sandwich, but I did because he's hungry. I gave a sandwich. So lead by example, like Brother Christopher says. To me, that's just leading by example of what a Christian does, and have conversations. It's when we talked about pork and stuff like that. I don't eat pork for a different reason, not because of Levitical laws. Ham and pork tend to have a lot of bacteria and a lot of disease in them because they're never cooked properly. You have to cook them properly to get out all the bad stuff. We'll just say bad stuff. I'm trying, instead of saying bacteria, blah, 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 to get all that bad stuff out. So for me, we don't eat it because of the health aspects of it, not because of any dietary laws. That's We're not under that, so I don't follow that. So I know, obviously, we know that Islam does, and Jews and so forth. I don't. I'm still surprised that he didn't pray over his meal or ask God or Muhammad or Allah to bless his food. We here do all the time. I know my boys will do it over snack time, just their snacks alone. They thank the Lord. They ask the Lord to bless their snacks even. So I think it's a good habit to be in. But I'm a different kind of cat. I'm a King James guy who doesn't celebrate Christmas. So, that already throws people off. But Christmas season is over now. And again, I wonder, I have family day with my family. We have a get together and we have just a beautiful day. We exchange presents and we would eat outside, but we had to move it up this year. Like I said before, I don't have it. We don't usually have it in December, but because my son might be gone for 7 months off the National Guard, we moved it up to December instead of July. And so we do a lot of fun and hang out there and have a great time as a family. But it does throw people off. They're not ready for it. Oh, I was going to say earlier, so my father, those of you who know me know that my father lives with us. We take care of our father in his last days. And clearly my father and I know we don't see eye to eye on a number of things, obviously. Him being a Pentecostal charismatic, but the nurse we had a nurse come over today he's on hospice. He's been in hospice this last year. And so she came in and she asked my wife, I'm like, oh, how was your Christmas? And my wife looked at her and went, we don't celebrate Christmas. And then that woman who's a Christian says to her, goes, I hate Christmas. I'm like, or something along that lines. And I thought that was funny. I'm like, and this is a Baptist person. She goes, Christmas doesn't feel right. It's not right. I don't think we're supposed to. And I'm seeing now, and I guess there are more people finally coming to that conclusion. I know that I did a lot of videos last year where I got a lot of flack for that, but that's okay. But I thought it was kind of interesting, that conversation, because she was a little surprised by it, I think, and then that led to a conversation between my wife and the nurse. So that's good. She's able to basically witness to her in a way, not even though she's a Christian or I'm sure she probably is. There's a lot of Christians that get sidetracked different ways. I mean, it doesn't mean every Christian's perfect, but. And again, I think people have always have thought that I hate people who celebrate Christmas. I've never said that whatsoever, ever, and I never will. In fact, I'm working on my Christmas book that will hopefully be out next year. So it'll now be the 4th book I've done. I've sold very little of any of my other books, but that's okay. I don't go marketing them and stuff like that. Maybe I should make a commercial for them. But that'll be out next year. I started it last year and then got sidetracked onto a lot of different other things. I wrote the 3 other books, so I guess I got sidetracked, but I'll get back to that and put that out next year. Hopefully I can get it out before Christmas, and it'll probably be my shorter books I'll probably give away for free. Like this one here, The Truth About Christian Liberty. I'll probably just start giving them out for free. Yeah, I know it costs money to make them, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But it was interesting to see the nurse it sounds as if it was almost like a sigh of relief that she didn't have to pretend to like Christmas. I thought that was really, really weird. They'll never vote for conservative values because they know we won't agree with them, but they'll vote for woke ideology and liberals because they will cave to Islam under the banner of tolerance. Yeah, I agree. You're in my opinion, you're 100% right on that one. Because their ideology gives them freedom to hate us, in my opinion, because they already hate family values and what would be considered the Christian values. They would be absolutely against that. Yeah, I was wondering what was going to happen with that. I kept on thinking there was going to be a backlash, or he wasn't going to be able to take office or something, or I just thought something would happen, but nothing did. And it doesn't surprise me. That or Minnesota, same thing with Minnesota. I got to say it right, Minnesota, eh? Actually, that's up in North Dakota too, eh? But yeah, he's a crazy guy too, but no big deal there, huh? That's just, sometimes you get what you ask for, Wow, what a cesspool. New York, it's a cesspool now. It's just a cesspool. I think it'll become as bad as it was in the 70s, but for a different reason. I mean, there's a lot of crime in the 70s and a lot of economic things going on there. And then I think it kind of got cleaned up with Rudy Giuliani at that point. And then you had Blasio in there and after that. But yeah, they're trying to take over. They want to take over. And the Vatican's in bed with them. They're all in bed together. And I brought that up to you guys. Listen, you guys are coexist till you don't exist. I mean, you're Pope and your Imam. And I did actually say your Pope, and it's not his Pope, but I said your Pope. And your bigwigs over there, your Muslim bigwigs, they're all hanging out and chilling. So what kind of Muslim are you going to be? Chrislam is a Trojan horse. Islam's more political than religious. Yeah, they've always wanted power and control. And I don't believe it was ever designed in the first place to be a religion, to use religion to get their foothold in to that situation and to take over and control. And much like Catholicism, they took control by violence and power and destruction. Much like when the like the Atlantic slave trade route, when they were coming over from Niger and Nigeria and all that area over to South America with slave ships, it wasn't until pirates grabbed a couple of ships under the Dutch flag. The irony of that, the Catholic ships that were going back and forth with all the slaves to South America and just destroying South America and clearing out areas to build a Catholic area. That's what they wanted. They were trying to expand down there and take over the land. And it wasn't until it was Jamestown where those two ships, I think the White Lion, and I forget the other name of the boat off the top of my head, I apologize. But when they were actually pirated by two other ships sailing under the Dutch flag who got attacked those ships and then brought them up to Jamestown and say, hey, we want to sell these here. You guys need any or anything like that. So the first slave ships were never, the destination was not America at that point in time. It was America as in South America, but it just happened to get up there and then you go from there. The Vatican has always been trying to take over there. People don't understand that the Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, Alexander H. Stephens, the vice president, and a lot of members were actually Roman Catholics. And what was interesting down south, that's right, brother. Your testimony will have a tremendous impact on his life. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I think we have to lead the right way without to show. I just feel it's the right thing to do. And I remember praying quietly to the side and asking the Lord to just guide me through the situation and give me the right words to be able to approach the situation properly and to have to come with love and peace with no malice. I'm not against the idea of violence as in a self-defense type of violence for my family. And when I say my home, I don't mean the structure itself, but my home, my family was my home. And that's where I have no issues with. But yeah, anyways, yeah. So Catholics were running the Confederacy at that time. So I think a lot of people don't understand that. And I think a lot of people in the Bible Belt have always just felt that Baptists were always here. It was always Baptist. Well, no, it started Roman Catholic. The Baptists were north. And it's kind of like they say the political switch in the 60s, how the Democrats became all of a sudden Republicans, or it's the change, like they were for slavery, the Democrats, they were all KKK members. And then after the 60s, all of a sudden they're about civil rights and they're, you know what I mean? So I'm like, you're a bunch of liars. You guys were the main ones hanging people. I'm not saying there were no bad Republicans. I'm just saying you Democrats were involved with all of that. That was their kick. But the reason you have so many Democrats going back generations is because the Roman Catholic Church, there was more Roman Catholicism down here than there was Baptist. Baptist, whether you want to be Landmark Baptist or the American Baptist, whatever, the Baptists were north and came south, and they just switched it up. It's funny how that happens. And I think a lot of people in the South don't know that. Brother Christopher's lived here his whole life. He could attest to what he's heard or believed. But the reason I came across that and went down that route to study is I was working with a gentleman. What is his name? James, I think is his name. And he had this tattoo on his arm, and I saw it, and it screamed Catholic to me. And I looked at him. I said, James, have you lived here your whole life? He goes, yeah, born and raised. You know, and I'm like, are you Catholic? He goes, I was Catholic. Yeah, I was born Catholic. I'm like, because he had a Catholic. To me, the tattoo of the crucifixion just screamed Catholicism. And that's when I did the study on that and realized and found out, I'm like, oh, wow. This was mostly Catholic. There was a lot of Catholicism, Lutherans, Episcopalians. When you look at all the leaders in the Confederacy at that time, your big members are all Episcopalians and Catholics. That's all they were. Obviously, everybody knows John Wilkes Booth was Catholic, and you get into the whole Mary Surratt being Catholic, and the inn that she had was for Catholics with priests coming through town. So, yeah, it's interesting. And then talk about Baptists. Today's Baptists aren't even the same as the old Baptists. I talked about this last year. Baptists were completely 100% opposed to Christmas before 1860s. It wasn't until after 1860s, in fact, after the Civil War. In fact, the first time Christmas documented a Christmas celebrated in a Baptist church was 1868. Was the first time that happened. Pre that, they were completely against. They were anti-Christmas because it was all paganism and coming from Rome and from the Vatican and come through the church. And then it was getting into the Anglican church as well at that time. They're like, oh, we're out of here. We don't want nothing to do with this nonsense. And so you got over here. Then you have those traditions brought over from Germany when they had started migrating over in the 1800s and bringing those type of traditions over. So I went off trail. I'm sorry. I went down a rabbit trail. I pulled a Nick. I pulled a brother Nick. I did a rabbit trail. I still haven't gone to his Facebook. He has some what's it called? Texas Receptus Academy. I just don't have the time. I like to pop in there and look at a few things because I personally don't believe you need Greek or Hebrew at all. None at all. But I just enjoy learning different things. I like learning a little Greek. I think it's a fun thing to do. It's not needed, but I think it's neat, cool. I don't know what the word to use and the phraseology to use in this particular situation, but I think it's a neat thing to do if you got time to do it. I don't always have time, but the only time I listen to Nick is when I'm doing other stuff and research, and I have him on in the background. And then sometimes I'll actually just solidly watch for about 20, 25 minutes, and then I go into doing what I'm doing. What I think is funny, I remember one day, I kid you not, Brother Embryo, you can empathize or understand how Brother Nick's channel works. He started his live stream. I was at work one day. I got home, came to my office area, and did a few things before supper time, and he was still on. I went and had supper, and I came back, and Brother Nick was still on. He was still going. So it's almost like you never have fear of missing out on Nick's videos because his live stream because he'll be on for a while. He'll be on for a while. My hour and a half that I've been here doesn't even come close to competing with Nick. But he brings a lot of good things to the table. He's a lot of good information that brought, and mostly I find that his chat forum, for the most part, is actually civil for the most part. There's sometimes a couple of people, but I've seen some other channels and chat lines there, and with a whole lot of negativity and a lot of anger and malice and hate. So, like I said, for the most part, Brother Nick chat forum, which is I like, is what I say on my live stream. I say dignity and maturity as usual, and that's what I see that happens over there a lot. There's people who come in there with maturity and dignity, and that's another reason I like to watch his channel, because it's not too much back and forth of hatred or stuff like that. Because I think some people get caught up in side dialogue and not listen to what he's bringing to the table. Now, not everything he's done that I've listened to. I enjoyed the Keith Foskey. The one he's been doing with Bart Ehrman, I've caught a little bit of it, but I don't have a lot of interest. I'll pop in and listen now and then, but Bart Ehrman's a nut. So I don't really have any interest with that guy. He can go back and hang out with Mr. Alain Nessel. Go back and maybe in time he can hang out with Eberhard Nessel, which was also influenced by a lot of philosophy, but he's also influenced by Westcott and Hort by his own admission. So and that's why I keep putting out those Westcott Hort videos and keep doing those. Yeah, I know they're not going to get thousands and thousands of views, but that's okay. If it helps one person see something, that's worth it to me. I'm not worried about the big numbers. I would be fearful of Christian channels, so-called, that have big, giant channels. I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of that. I almost hope that doesn't happen to me, and it's not going to. There's no way it will. I don't. I think I would rub too many people's feathers the wrong way. But and there's a lot of hypocrisy on a lot of those Christian channels as well, in my opinion. And that I think, and that's why you see a lot of people moving into Catholicism, younger people, because they want tradition. They're fed up with the hypocrisy they see in the church buildings, or the hypocrisies at their local church, or the hypocrisies of the government. And it reminds me of another time period. And I can only say this from studying and talking to others, because I was not alive during Woodstock era. So, but it reminds me of the fact that you had the same thing happening during that time frame. You had the hippie movement that was counterculture and against the establishment and the stuffiness, and you had the same thing with the Jesus movement, and that would be the musicians who came out of that time period. And I believe, by the way, that the Jesus movement, I believe some of those musicians were truly searching and seeking God. I really do think some, not all of them. I think some were just there, but some were truly seeking. And they were going against the stuffinesses, basically, of the church, and the hypocrisy of which they saw the church buildings at that time, just a bunch of old people in suits, So they were looking for something, so they got into that type of style of music, and they went in that direction, and the hippie connection. Now I think you have the same thing with the younger generation. They want some sort of traditional values. They want I don't want to say values, but some sort of tradition, and it's traditions of men, unfortunately. Yes, absolutely agree. It is the Vatican. The funny thing about the Vatican, what is the what is the treaty that Benito Mussolini in 1929 had a treaty with Rome? I'm trying to think of what the treaty was called that he gave all that land. Oh, my goodness. But anyways, the palace of which it was named after that treaty was actually where the some of the popes used to sit. Well, I'm not talking about the French period when they were over in Avignon or whatever it's called. They said that it was named. I'm trying to think. I should probably look it up. But it was named after a palace that the emperors used to sit in, and then it was given to the popes and stuff like that, and they sat in it. So just another fact of the Roman Empire and the Holy Roman Empire and the Vatican being as one. Roman Catholicism is Satan's masterpiece, and not a masterpiece I would hang on my wall. That's for sure. What is this? I'm marking the wrong thing here. Hold on a second. Why is my other internet? Oh, my internet doesn't work properly on my other one. I'm just gonna put in Benito. My wife's father. I know it's a side thing here. My wife's father was alive during World War II. He was a kid in World War II. He's no longer alive now, and I never got to meet him. He died at an early age. I think in his early 60s, unfortunately. I forget what age he died. But he lived during that time frame, and I think to myself, what was it like? You know, I wish I would have been able to know him to ask questions of being alive at that point in time, and that he could hear on the radio. In fact, he didn't even leave Italy until I think almost 1960 or right around then. Now he went to Venezuela and worked as a waiter at the U.S. embassy that's no longer there over in Caracas. Caracas? I think Caracas. I'm pretty sure it's Caracas. Hey, Texas. We're hoping to go down to Texas not this summer, but the following summer. I'm over in Tennessee. I'm in eastern Tennessee, southeastern. I'm over in McMinn County. It's called McMinn or McMinn County. But yeah, that's where I live. I'm over in Tennessee. I know we got some brothers around the area. Got another one in Tennessee. We got another one in Florida. You're over in Texas. My wife has a sister in Christ who's over in, she'd be my sister in Christ as well, over in Texas as well. I think she's more middle Texas somewhere. I'm trying to think of where she's from. I think north of San Antonio, somewhere. I can't remember. I can't recall. I was trying to look up Benito Mussolini and the pact that he made, but I can't remember the name. But it's kind of dry. It's one of those things that kind of drives you nuts. It's like it's on your mind. You're like, oh, what is the name of something? And you can't remember what it is. Sometimes you just can't let something go. I'm going to write the Vatican. Read more. Lateran, the Lateran Treaty. So it was the Lateran Palace. I was going to say Lapham and Lapham, and I couldn't think of the word, what the name was. But yeah, Lateran Treaty. So that was where. That's why Rome has always been connected to the Roman Empire. Is just kind of side shifted over and became, obviously, I think a lot of people know that it became the Vatican, became the Roman Church, and it didn't just you could say it was formalized or became really official with Constantine. But when they say he gave rights to Christians, be careful what we're thinking here. It wasn't about just Christians. It was particular people, and it was people basically of that Roman Catholic Church. That's that trend there. The false Christians, like I believe a lot of the Jews that will inherit the land supposedly in Israel are not the Jews there. Like I don't think even Benjamin Netanyahu is fully Jewish. Yes, he was born somewhere else in the fact because a lot of people were born outside there with Jews, but he's not the one that's taken over. But yeah, the Lateran Treaty. And if you look at that, even the Vatican was involved with the Vietnam War. I think it was the South Vietnam's president was Roman Catholic. The North Vietnam's president leader there was in a seminary and did not stay Catholic, but was in a seminary to be a priest. Look at Joseph Stalin, same thing. He was in a seminary. As far as I remember, he was supposed to become a priest as well. So the Vatican has always been after control, much like Islam. So to me, I think there are three forces that want power and control of everything, and that would be the Mormons and the Roman Catholic Church and Islam. They want, and they will stop at nothing to try to acquire that. But I believe God's going to protect some of us from these things, and I do believe the Vatican will get its way, because the end will come. It's just as simple as that, and they'll get what they want out of that. I know there's conversations. Will there be a digital antichrist and stuff like that? I've heard that talk. I don't know about all that, but something else going to say. Whoops, down there. But you got Roman Catholicism involved in everything. I mean, I do believe in a way that the Vatican, the Roman Catholic Church, created Islam as well. Much like I said about this gentleman I talked to, he says it wasn't a Catholic, it was a scholar who told Muhammad that his dream was accurate. I still think that's fascinating. I have not heard that. That was the first time I've heard that. I don't know if anybody else have heard that, but I'd never heard that angle before, that a scholar came and said that was Gabriel. That was the angel, came down to talk to you. I'm like, really? A scholar told you that? I'm like, was it Dan Wallace's dad, James White's dad? Well, it would have been his dad. It'd go a lot longer than that ago. But I said, well, I'll tell you right now, I told him that scholar is probably a Roman Catholic too at the same time. So amen, brother. No need for Greek or Hebrew. It's good to know. Just engage with those that do. Yeah, no, I enjoy it. I was working on my numbers and some of my letters and stuff like that, and but I always want to learn French as well. I don't need French to be an evangelize people. I was watching, and I don't know who watches this person's live stream, but I was bothered by what they said, that you have to know all these certain things so you can witness to people. And I says, who am I witnessing to? I'm thinking to myself, scholars? I don't care. I'm not looking to witness to scholars. I'm looking to do everyday people. When you're going out witnessing, you let me know how many people are fluent Greek out there walking around. Like there's a bunch of people in the park down there where we'll go to witness that are all of a sudden, they're all speaking Koine Greek. And speaking of Greek, and I've often wanted to bring this up to Brother Nick and ask him about it, because I remember working with a Greek woman at Salvation Army a long time ago. I ran the docks down there at the Salvation Army at one point. And I think one of the reasons I had a personal connection, even though I think the Salvation Army is evil, we grew up pretty poor. My mom got clothes. When my mom and dad were divorced, my mom got clothes and stuff like that from the Salvation Army. So in a weird way, it held a kind of a place for me because of we got our clothes there. But where was I going with that? Greek and Greek. I was going. Oh, so working with a Greek woman, and I asked her about Greek and is it different dialects? And I was because I've always talked about different languages, and when I know somebody who's into something or from a different country, I like to ask questions. I'm a very curious guy, and she said there are different dialects. She said, but even today's Greek is not the same Greek when she was a little girl. Some of it has changed over the years. So that leads me to believe that, are we always understanding what we know? You know, and words change, or there are different letter changes. And I know Brother Nick talks about different markings and different letters. And so I think it'd be pretty confusing to go through that. It's kind of like I had a conversation with, I don't know how you feel about Hebrew and Aramaic. I know some folks, I did a Westcott Hort video about that, the subscriptions. Subscribe now. The superscription on the cross, on the up there, it said Latin. How's it go? Is it Greek, Latin, Hebrew? Or is it Latin, Greek, Hebrew? I always forget which the order is. But Hebrew is always last one. But some will say it should say Aramaic. I disagree for reasons I pointed out in that Westcott Hort video, but why it should say Hebrew and not Aramaic. But not all the little people spoke Aramaic. There were a lot of them knew Aramaic, but they also spoke Greek because it was the tradesman administrative language for that time frame. So they spoke that. Even Roman soldiers didn't speak regular Latin. They spoke a vulgar Latin. So they spoke differently. So you have classical Latin, the Vulgar Latin. You have ecclesiastical Latin, which is different than the other Latin. So, anywho, but the Aramaic, and he was telling me, this kid at work, he thinks people should learn Arabic, I can't even say a word, so they can better understand the Quran and understand what it really says. I'm like, well, why can't you really translate it? So that means if you really can't get the word out to me, then you don't know what you're talking about, and you guys have made a lot of things up. I said one can believe that. That's how I always phrase it. I said one can believe that it's made up because you can't seem to translate it into something that matches. The King James Bible has been able to do that. Has been able to decipher through that. So even Jerome, if I'm not correct, he had to use to translate the Hebrew into Latin. He had to use Greek, so he had to go into Greek and then back down to Latin. In fact, if you reverse Genesis 3:16, if you reverse it, reverse engineer the language, and you go, because it's in Latin, but if you go backwards, it actually says the same thing. If you put the Latin into the Greek and then the English, it actually says exactly what the King James Bible says, not what the Douay-Rheims says. So I found that rather interesting, because Latin translated to Greek. So they just changed it, is what they did. They just pick and choose what they're doing there. But I said, no, why would I need to? I said, that means if I need to learn the language that Islam knows, that means that I have to be in Islam, or I have to be in a Muslim now, because I can only have that language. And God did not make that to be the truth. That's not how that works. I said, predominantly the world does speak English. They speak a lot of different languages, but English is among the languages, because English, if you want to use Greek as an analogy, English is the trades language of all the countries. They knew English. You can speak about Cantonese or not Cantonese. Mandarin would be up there as a language that's used a lot too. I don't know, but be sure to like before you guys. Well, that's nice of you. Thank you. I got to get into your videos. I'm skeptical of many channels as well. I'm enjoying your discussion. Well, I appreciate that, and obviously and honestly, I'm willing to be corrected if I've made an error somewhere that I've, gave a wrong date or wrong name or something. Listen. We are not to have so much pride that we can't be corrected in a loving manner among brothers and sisters. We're supposed to help each other, right? If we got a date wrong or something wrong, if I was wrong about the Lateran Treaty or something, only because we were just talking about that, then I don't want to go being wrong all my life. I'd have to go back and look. Oh, did I get that wrong? Let me go back and check that out. I'm like, oh, maybe I was wrong. You seem to know your history and movements. Well, I don't know a lot of things. I know some things. I guess I wish I knew more sometimes, but in a weird way, we have to be careful of too much knowledge over wisdom. I think we need wisdom over knowledge. But I like to know things to the best of my abilities. And I'm willing to listen. Like with this Muslim, I didn't just shut him off. I wanted to hear what he had to say. And I want his explanation on things. Because we can go online all we want, or ChatGPT, and ask what do they really mean, or see some guy on YouTube channel or something like that. Well, talk to a guy, you know what I mean, and see if they're thinking the same thing, or are they making excuses like you were saying earlier. And yeah, they I think sometimes they're playing pretend. And I'm skeptical. I'm against a lot of channels. I know that's an awful thing to say, but I've just seen too many of them that are just like, what are you doing, man? There's one lately that I've watched his live streams, and I don't know that I'll watch any more of them anymore. He seems too much on click and subscribe, and yes, it's nice to have people subscribe to your channel. I'm all in, and I still think half the people that I had subscribed was during that whole Christmas run where I got some pushback and stuff like that, which is fine. I really don't have a problem with that. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. But he had said that he wants to, and maybe I'm wrong here. You guys can give me your opinion. He wants to create this big channel. He wants to be bigger. And I was like, oh man, I don't know. That's where I kind of turned me off a little bit. I'm like, to me, I felt like, so your goal isn't about just truth and preaching or discussing the word of God or getting into these things. You are more concerned with the growth of your channel instead of the content of your channel. So, and I could have, and maybe I'm misreading this gentleman. I don't know. And I think sometimes people start dancing too much with the world. And I used to use the term footsies, but I guess that probably could be thought of as some sort of sexual innuendo. But it's an old terminology. When you play footsies with the world, I'm like, be careful of that. You know what I mean? And that's a real problem. When you got 2 feet, you got 1 foot in the world, you got 1 foot here. Well, that chasm starts to grow and grow and grow, and you're just going to be split. And now I do this channel. I've never asked for donations or anything, and I've been blessed. My brother David sent me a box of Chick Tracts that I'm able to get in the bags and out there, so I'm really happy about that. That was really awesome. But then it comes to working for a living. It's a lot of these things that I have issues with. These guys saying one thing, but you're trying to live off everybody else, and that's becomes a problem. I think it becomes an issue. If you're more concerned, we're talking about these channels, and I'll tell you right now, I know Nick does debate sometimes, but I'm completely against debate channels and debating. I'm not for that at all. I spent 30 days. I got fired for about a month. I got fired by my ESB mega church boss, and we did not see eye to eye. I had conversations with him. I was never angry or mean to him. I said, well, kind of following the false Bible here. You get the wrong, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, whatever. But then he had finally fired and said, because, I did a video, but I don't want to get too far into it, but I did do a video about it because I think it's hilarious. But it worked out for me because I'm in a better location. And I make more money where I am now, so I guess it all works out. And I believe God allowed him. God allows us to be in a situation. God allowed him to fire me, and because something else was waiting for me, and it was set up. But oh my goodness, I just went down a rabbit trail, and I can't remember what I was talking about. Probably about the channels of some sort. But the debate channels. SFT, Standing for Truth. That channel I'll go ahead and just name. Another brother was telling me about, hey, this guy from another channel, and we know. I'm like, yeah, we knew this particular guy. I'm like, yeah, he's on a debate channel. I'm like, no kidding. And so I went and checked it out, and I said, I just spoke like I'm Canadian. I went out. I am a Frenchman, so I guess I got Canadian in me. So I went and checked it out and watched it. But so I didn't want to make my judgment on just like one debate. I watched many of them. I watched some back ones. And what I saw was a lot of anger. I saw people almost, if they were in the same room, it's almost like they would have punched each other. But then end calling each other, well, I love you, brother. It's great to be here. I'm like, wait, hold on. You're going to call him brother and tell him, but you're going to debate that he doesn't agree on anything you agree on, but your brothers. I'm like, doesn't make sense. And debate literally means to beat down. If we look at the definition of debate, it means to beat down, to win, to beat down, to win. I'm like, I'd rather have a discussion, and I think some people mean to do that. They want to start out in a civil discussion. I think Nick was doing one debate. Brother Calvin was telling me this. Tried with fire. I think you know who that is, Emriel. And he was pointing out that one of his debates, it started out as seemed to be like they were civil, and then it went off the rails, and then it became not as civil anymore, and it became more of an argument than anything else. I think there's no fruit from that. They're just terrible over there. I don't know. I was astounded because I actually didn't realize there was such thing as Christian debates. The only Christian debate I guess you could say I ever watched was when I caught a Ruckman video that he did with a defending the King James against Carl Keating. I have actually a couple of Carl Keating's books. Carl Keating is false. What's the creator of Catholic Answers? I don't know where I did with those, but I don't know. I don't know what I did with them. But so, well, other than that, man, I'm not seeing the love. I'm not seeing the love among the brethren when I see things like that, when they're this close to swearing all the time. And I don't curse, which is another thing I found interesting. The Muslim guy today actually swore a few times, and I was a little thrown off by that. I'm like, wow, so you guys are allowed to swear. I guess God's okay with you using, cursing and using foul language. Interesting. I thought that was fascinating to me as well, but I shouldn't be surprised, but I did find it fascinating. But I'm not a fan of debates. I don't think we should be debating. I think it depends on what your version of debating is. Having a conversation and dialogue. One could say, yeah, well, they had debates back in the day up on Solomon's porch, and they all went to the same temple. By the way, that's not actually 100% true, because it's different parts of Solomon. I'll be getting into that in another video at some point. But yeah, that's not how that worked. There were different areas. It was a large area. I mean, we're talking like 25 acres of land, and they weren't even in the temple. When they went up to the temple, a lot of people say they went into the temple, and I disagree on that point, because they went up to the temple, and someone will have to give me a verse. I don't remember where the verse is, but they went up to the temple, but they were outside the temple. They weren't in the temple. They were outside of it, and they were doing their preaching. But there were many different religions there. There were different cults. There were the Essenes were over there trying to preach outside to people, and they were there outside. So I think it's misleading when they say, "Oh yeah, they were in the temple. They went up to worship in the temple." Now, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I probably should look it up. Let's see. Peter goes up to the temple. I have it in my PDF files because I was doing some work on this, but let's see. Look up KJV. That's Acts 3:1. So, and when you had different parts of it. So when you were going into the temple, you were going unto or up to or in the temple. It wasn't actually in the temple. It was that surrounding area of the temple, because it was still considered part of the temple. So the outside grounds they would have considered at the same time the same thing. It's in Acts 3:1, but there was another spot I'm pretty sure it was at as well. I don't remember where it is. I'm not used to going online to look. I'm not a big online guy for looking up verses. It says 3:1. That refers to it again, probably in 16:13. I went to reach back for my King James Bible. I usually have it behind me. What did I do with it today? I don't know where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Yeah, right here. But was it Acts? I know a lot of people like the visuals of pulling it up on screen on the online, but I have discovered that there are things that are not the same online when you go to these Bible apps and stuff like that. So I have found a couple of errors. I did talk about them in a couple of videos, and that don't match the paper copies. Like I have the 1976 New Testament of NIV, the 1984, and the 2011. And there's one particular scripture, I cannot recall what it is. I'd have to go back to my videos. But it says one thing in the paper copy, but when you go on the Bible, on the online apps, all the online apps for that same verse don't match what's in the paper copy. So that's why I don't rely on the online. I'm not against people who go on them and look at them and use them or find a spot and then go to the actual paper copy. I think if we rely too much on computers, we're going to forget how to use an actual Bible in our hands and look, you know what I mean? So, all right. I think it's 1613. I apologize. I appreciate your patience. 1613. 1613. Per winter May, we sat down speaking. Nope, I thought 1613 was a correlation of 3-1. It is not. So I apologize. Let's go 3-1. Because they all went up there and preached. Everybody, all different people went up in that area. Yeah. Now Peter John went up together to the temple at the hour of prayer, being the 9th hour. A certain man lame. That was what the situation was, carried. So they were about to go to the temple, but they never went into the temple. They went into the temple. But if you look at the next verse, they didn't go there. But they were outside. They would have preached outside with a lot of different ones. But again, I'm going down a different rabbit hole. What's it? 2 hours in? It's 11:30 at night. I started late this evening because I was late to the live stream, and I apologize for that. I don't know. I shouldn't really feel guilty about it, but I feel guilty that I was so late because of the working so late today. So I'm at 11:30, and as much as I'm enjoying the conversation, I'm going to have to be calling it shortly because normally I like it to be 8 to 11. I don't want to go over that. I am not Nick. I'm just teasing. I love Nick. I think he's awesome. I think he does a great job what he does. I'm just teasing him. But we all know he can. He's got the. He can get squirrely and go down different paths. I tune out sometimes at that point. I'm like, okay, I'm not there on that one. So I wish I could have been more exciting and more fun tonight. I did enjoy the conversation, Brother Emrio, tonight. And I appreciate whoever's watching out there right now. And I always say this, and I always mean it, that I'm always grateful and thankful and appreciate those who take their time to come hang out and watch me. So for those who might see this afterwards, I'm sorry I was an hour and a half late for live stream tonight. Sorry about that. But I'll apologize next Friday to those who were there waiting and weren't able to get there. I always enjoy talking to you too, Brother Christopher. You're a stand-up guy. I don't know what to say, but I've always felt you to be a stand-up guy. Brother Emrio, thank you, man. Thanks for stopping by. I'll probably spot you again in the next Nick video. If he doesn't have it, he's got that Australian time. So when he has it, sometimes I'm like, I'm not even up. It might be early in the morning for me. Well, it's the same as you because you're an hour behind me, but I can't catch him sometimes. He's at he comes on once in a while, odd hours. Sometimes I'm at work. He comes on when I'm at work. I'm like, I can't watch you when I'm at work. I don't have this type of job. But I'm going to go ahead now. I'm going to end it there. Not as exciting a night as I can usually be. I wasn't uplifting enough, but thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Brother Emrio, Brother Jorge, Brother Christopher, and everybody else, and whoever sisters were watching tonight. Thanks for stopping in. And as usual, God bless and have a beautiful week. Or until the next time I talk to you. I'm going to awkwardly end the stream. Yes. Yep. I've watched all three. We own The Lamp in the Dark and Tares Among the Wheat. We have the DVDs of that one. I don't think we have the DVD for Bridge to Babylon, but I have watched Bridge to Babylon. I think somebody told me this Chris Pinto has a podcast or some sort of channel somewhere. So I think I wrote it down on a piece of paper once. But yeah, I think he did a good job too of exposing David Barton as well. He did a good job there. Glenn Beck's buddy. But thank you for those recommendations. And I do have them. I'll have to check if I have Bridge to Babylon. But I think he did a wonderful job on those. I enjoyed those. All right. With that, I say God bless and see you next time I talk to y'all. Have a great week.